Win our weekly jackpot with Paddy's Pick 5. Pick 5 winners from our 5 races to win. Enter for free online. Paddy Power.
Hello everyone and a happy new year to you. This is the first edition of 2023 of The Road to Cheltenham. Sadly, we don't have Ruby Walsh with us. He is having a well-earned break, but instead I am joined by a jockey who's enjoyed much success on both sides of the Irish Sea during this Yuletide period. It is Daryl Jacob. Daryl, welcome to the show.
Thank you very much for having me. I suppose last time I tried to fill Ruby's boots, that didn't go down too well, did it?
This is going to go fine.
Thanks.
I am looking forward to hearing about all of your key rides over Christmas and also your thoughts about the races either side of the bells of New Year. But we'll be focusing in on James de Berlais, on Blue Lord, on Zambella in a few moments' time. But first off, Daryl, just people who don't know, you're a retained rider for Isaac Suaid and Simon Munir. How did that association come about?
To be fair, I've been with them 9 years now, and it was obviously whenever myself and Paul departed our ways. I was obviously injured at the time. I got that fall at Cheltenham, and when I broke my leg, my knee, my shoulder, a few ribs and stuff like that. And you know, it was a phone call from Simon asking how I was and stuff like that, and it just sort of the conversations led to there, and he offered me a role as sort of second jockey to him behind the stable jockeys at the time, and you know, the relationship has just blossomed. And you know, with Isaac, and Anthony, it's you know, it's a fantastic relationship run on trust.
That was a kind thing of Simon to do. Tell me how it works practically, because obviously they're big owners. They've got some really good horses at top yards. Some of those top yards have retained stable jockeys of their own. So how does that fit in?
So really, it's very simple, really. Obviously, my contract is for all the English horses, and you know, I just basically fill in the gaps, whether I'm needed in Ireland or in France, you know, whenever the opportunity comes available, you know, to ride some good horses in Ireland. You know, you can guarantee I'll jump on the flight. And you look, I've spent a lot of time over the last couple of years, you know, going over to the Irish yards and riding the young horses, and, you know, riding them, you know, whenever they come back in after the summer's break, and just getting a feel of how they're developing, how they've done from the previous year. And, you know, it just works out that I've been very, very lucky this year. Obviously, Willie's got a monumental team of horses there, and as ever, yeah. And I've managed to pick up some really nice spare rides along the way. I mean, Paul can't ride them all, and you know, lucky enough, you know, Willie's been very, very good to me, and you know, Simon, Isaac, and Anthony, they've kind of placed him really, really nicely, and it's just a fantastic relationship that we have.
So how often would you speak to Simon or Isaac or Anthony Bromley, the racing manager?
I speak to Ant nearly every day or every second day whenever we have something going on, or you know, if I think of something, information about some of the horses, you know, I'd speak to him quite regularly, and then he'd put down in his books or whatever it needs been. And you know, with Simon and Isaac, we're on a WhatsApp group, and you know, we speak to each other quite regularly on that. I mean, they're obviously businessmen, they're very, very busy, so I like to keep them updated as much as I can about the horses and how they're doing. Okay,
well, we're going to update the roadies about some of the key rides that you've had over Christmas. Let's start with James de Berlais, shall we? Tell me how his chase debut went. He looked like at the start he was going to be a bit of a handful.
Yeah, he was. He basically ran away with me for 2 miles, really. Look, he's a brilliant horse. You know, his form over in France is very, very good before he came to Willie's, and you know, it just goes to show how much Willie thought of him. As you know, he chucked him straight into the champion hurdle, a little bit outpaced then. But here, like at Ferris, he was just very, very good. He was a bit keen and a bit gassy for the first mile and a half. Just wanted to get on with it because he'd been off the track for a long time. But I thought his jumping was very good.
This is the only mistake or semblance of that he makes?
Yeah, that was literally, he was just sort of, it just started getting a bit of ahead of steam, and like with all of these novice hurdlers and novice chasers, their first experience jumping these obstacles is very, very important. And you know, it's all well and good to go around there and give them a squeeze and them coming outside the wings at every fence, but you know, the horses have to learn and they have to be educated as well, and that's what the real good riders like Ruby would tell you, Barry, Paul, you know, AP, you know, they all got horses into a lovely rhythm, and as they were going around, they're teaching the horses as well, because, you know, these horses obviously will have bigger, better targets in the near future, and they've got to be learned to do it both ways.
It was the first time we'd seen James de Berlais for 612 days. The last time was that second to Classical Dream over 3 miles as a novice hurdler at Punchestown. We've got a question from one of the roadies. This comes from Owen McMahon, and it's about the likely target over fences for James de Berlais. And he asks whether the horse is more of a Turner's over 2.5 mile at the Cheltenham Festival, or the Brown Advisory extended 3 miles. What would your answer be?
I think at the moment the Turners is a good option because, like you say, he's not slow. He's got plenty of gears. You know, obviously Willie, you know, on his first run he put him into the champion hurdle. So you know, from his homework and stuff like that. And I know Ruby and David Casey taught an awful lot of them even coming into the champion hurdle against some really good opposition. So you know, and the other day he didn't feel slow going around there the other day on very heavy ground, mind, at Fairyhouse. So look, I think the Turners is probably a realistic target, but he will get entered. I would imagine he'll get entered in the big 3 mile grade ones, you know, coming up in the spring festivals. Yeah. And
we might see him at the DRF maybe over 2.5.
I'd say that he'll probably go to the Dublin Racing Festival next year.
Okay. So that's James de Berlais. Let's talk about Blue Lord, who's in the second season over fences, and he won a really strong performance in the Paddy's Rewards Club Chase, a Grade 1 at Leopardstown on the second day of their meeting.
Yeah, look, I was very, very happy with him this day. Not very often you ride in a Grade 1 and you feel in control the whole way through the race. This horse has done really well. I mean, I rode him a lot last year, and I felt that this year he'd be even better again. And he's come back in the summer and he's a bigger, stronger. He's the all-rounder now, you know. And I thought Paul gave him a lovely ride over 2.5 down in Clonmel that day. But here, just the way he travelled and jumped. His jumping was very, very slick this day.
That's improved since his novice season.
Well, I just think he's just a finished article now. Like you say, last year I thought he still had a little bit more filling out to do, a little bit more strength because he's a big horse.
That was the critical error from Chacun Passoir. From your angle, was that then the game changer in the race?
To be honest with you, I felt comfortable the whole way. I seen Paul coming on me outside, and I seen him making the slight mistake, and you know, I felt as if I had him covered anyway at the time. But what I loved about Blue Lord this way is Rachel tried to quicken coming into the bend, and I wanted to get my lad rolling because I knew he'd run over 2.5. I wanted him to get rolling to quicken with Rachel, and actually I quickened the better of the two, and I actually landed myself in front a little bit sooner than what I wanted to, because sometimes he can idle when he gets to the front. And that just goes, I think, the maturity of the horse and how big and strong and well he feels that he can quicken instantly now, whereas last year it took him 5 or 6 strides to quicken, to get into the momentum, to build his strength, to get ahead of steam. Yes. Where it was instant the other day at Dublin. Yeah,
Captain Guinness is the runner-up. He's a much more practical and reliable performer this season, sort of hung left when challenged by you. Blue Lord also seems to have settled better. Now, that was a well-run race, but he kind of didn't help his chance in the Arkle when well beaten by Edwardstone because he was a bit keen.
Yeah, again, I just think he's just maturing into and with the racing that he's had and stuff like that, he's just matured into just a really fine big animal.
Okay. Couple of tweets to ask you about this involving Blue Lord. We'll start with Joe Smith. The two roadies are coming from different angles on this. He says, obviously Blue Lord's a high-class operator. Does he feel like a champion chase horse? He seems to have improved his jumping massively since last season. Whereas Neil Dawkins says, does Daryl think that Blue Lord would get the Ryanair trip if he went to that race? So that's the two different ways of looking at it. And Willie Mullins at the start of the season had said, I'm going to go for the champion chase. Then the Clonmel Oil happened and he thought, I'm going to go for the Ryanair. And then as a result of Leopardstown, he's back to the champion chase. What do you think?
To be fair, I think the horse is very adaptable. Like you say, like, you know, he's at the start of the year. They obviously thought when, you know, even at Punchestown towards the end of the season, he stayed on really nicely, and everyone was thinking, you know, he's going to be more of a Ryanair, you know, 2.5 mile, and that's why they obviously started him over down in Clonmel over 2.5. But you know, he beat a really, really good horse that day in Tornado Flyer, didn't he? And even Blue Lord, he was like heavy ground. He's seen that out really well. I know they didn't go very quick that day, but he's still seen it out very, very well, and he jumped the last two very, very quick. And then I suppose with the opposition that was in the race, they kind of thought, you know, maybe let's have a look at the 2 mile race, and you know, he's handled that really well. And to be honest with you, I think you could go either way. You can go 2.5, but I think Anthony, speaking to Ant, I think they're going to enter him in the 2 mile at the Dublin at the Racing Festival. See how he gets on there, and then I presume he'll be entered in the Ryanair, he'll be entered in Champion Chase, and just see what options they've got available after that.
Yeah, he has.
But it wouldn't worry me. It wouldn't worry me. 2.5. It wouldn't worry me.
You've got two very good horses up against you for Willie Mullins' yard, whichever way you go there. You've got Energamen in the Champion Chase. You've also got Edwardstone, his little mishap at Kempton notwithstanding. Or you've got Allaho. We assume he's entered in the Ryanair, and we've seen what he's done devastatingly in that race twice. I guess with Edison Jachit as well being in the Champion Chase, you're going to get your strong pace either way. Yeah,
exactly. The Champion Chase is always run. It's always run a good gallop, so you know that's obviously going to suit him. And like you say, last year even when he came down the Arkley slightly, it looked like as if he slightly got outpaced from 3 out into 2 out, and then he started getting ahead of steam and coming up the hill again, didn't he? This year I thought Leopardstown, that might be the case from the halfway to the 3/4. I thought I might have been a little bit outpaced, but I wasn't, and I was well on the bridle. So to me, you know, that's all in good stead for Blue Lord. I think whatever way you go, it's at Cheltenham. There's no easy Grade 1s, is there? So it's. I think it'll depend. He'll go to Dublin to the race, and then he'll be entered in all of them. And then I suppose it'll be Willie, Simon, Isaac, and Anthony. They'll have a discussion then after that, and where he'll run and come March.
Okay, you had a hat-trick of excellent wins over the Christmas period. Zambella was the other one at Doncaster, winning the Yorkshire Silver Vase, back-to-back wins in there. Career best performance from her, surely?
She's some queen, isn't she?
She's brilliant. She's really good.
She's very good. And I actually think she's actually better this year than she's ever been.
I agree.
I thought at Carlisle, when I won her that day up at Carlisle, I thought she was very good. And I said to Nigel, I think she's done well, and we didn't think she could possibly improve, but she had, when she was younger, she, you know, even though she jumps really well now, she still had her problems jumping. She used to miss one, she used to bank one, she used to be a little bit slow at 1 or 2, but I just think over the last 1.5 to 2 years, it's gradually, it's all coming together as in one package. And now, like I said, at Doncaster the other day, it was, to me, you know, even though we went a nice even gallop, I still thought we weren't going very quick, and I just thought, like, again, I thought the race was very much in control the whole way around. Yeah,
it was exhibition round of jumping. We've got a couple of questions for you. Jake Mann is the first one who sent his through. He says that Zambella seems to be getting better and better. What do you think about her chances for the Mayor's Chase at Cheltenham? I know that the Doncaster race was her target, but she jumps perfectly and could cause problems. And then we've got Ash Simmons saying, can Zambella keep improving? How important is soft ground for her? And he feels that she was branded as a mudlark last season.
Well, I think the whole soft ground and all that helped her in her younger days, because, like you say, she used to make the odd mistake, and she actually didn't have. She's a relentless galloper, but she didn't sort of have the speed to get from A to B. And where now it sort of feels like as if she's got a bit of speed, you know, with her jumping and everything. She's that quick. She's that much quicker. So, and the other day at Doncaster was only, mind you, it was only on the slow side of good. And like you say, you could nearly say that was one of her career best performances. So, I used to always like her on the softer ground because it just gave her a chance. Early doors and midway through the race, it gave her a chance, and I could ride her, I could educate her, I could do all that in her novice days, in her younger days. But now she's getting the more of a professional that she is. You know, she can go on, you know, on good soft ground, no problem at all.
To Jake's question, let's have a look at the past two Mrs. Paddy Power's Mayor's Chases, shall we? 2 years ago, this was when her jumping was a little bit sketchy. She was just working her way into it when this happened.
Yeah, and that's that's a typical, what I tried to explain a little bit earlier on. She just took a little bit of time to get her jumping, just to sort her knees out and get her knees up and over the fences. And when we were going fast, she used to struggle a little bit with that. But now actually she's matured and she's more of the finished article. She can pick her knees up and she can get from A to B an awful lot quicker.
And this is her in March, finishing 4th. There's not a lot of distance between her and Ellie May.
No, there's not. And like you say, this was a really good run, and she had a busy campaign leading up to Cheltenham last year. I think she had 3 runs in 3 months or something like that. Obviously I was out injured, but she had a busy time leading up to Cheltenham, and this year we've learned a little bit more about it. We're going to keep her a lot fresher, so she'll go to Huntingdon for, I think it's 2.5 mile listed chase at Huntingdon, and then we're going to give her real fresh then for Cheltenham. So I'd be hoping there'll be more improvement in her.
Yeah, I think that's the one that Pink Legend won last year, I think.
Yeah, I think so, yeah.
The runner-up in the Mrs Paddy Power, last gasp runner-up in March. If you like Zambella for the Mrs Paddy Power chase, you can get 12-to-1 best with Paddy Power for it, and she provides a nice segue into our next section. So let's keep talking about the mares, shall we? And we can start with some New Year's Day action from Fairyhouse, the John and Chich Fowler Memorial EBF Mares Chase. It was won by Scarlet and Dove, with Dolcita in second and Ballyshannon Rose back in third. You were in the race on the right-hand side there on Augusta Gold.
Yeah, this was a real tidy race. You know, we went a nice even gallop all the way. Brian was out on Scarlet and Dove and just getting a clear view of his fences, and you know, the more the race developed, she got better and better. I think she landed on that one there. Yeah, she just slightly reached for that. But what impressed me here was when Brian and Danny came into the home straight. They've really quickened after the second last. They've really quickened down to the last.
That is Dolcita, just being a little bit slow, then getting in close and nodding, and then reaching 3 out. And unfortunately, we lose Ferry Hill Run there. This is the straight, and the Principals, Dolcita on the left and Scarlet and Dove on the right, are wide apart on the track.
Yeah, the two of you, if you look, Brian Cooper came out wide to try and come up on the fresher ground, and actually Danny went on the inside of the chase track. So the two of them were looking for the better ground on both their mares. But like you say, the two of them were impressive, and they ran to the line very, very strong. Like you say, I finished a very, very tired 4th in the race, but the two of them were impressive now.
Yes, and Ballyshannon Rose was back in 3rd. She was the one that was up before and jumped right and collided with the rival Ferry Hill Run earlier on. Last year in the Mrs Paddy Power, Scarlet and Dove was a really close-up 3rd. She, as you've mentioned there, she does tend to throw in an error, doesn't she?
She just seems to, in every race, she just seems to throw in one slight mistake.
I think it's in her contract.
And she just loses a little bit of momentum, and then she has to, you know, the jockeys have to regain her again. But like you say, I think it's a little bit when it's all together, when she, you know, the finished arc, when A to B, very good, very fast, she's going to be, you know, high class. I mean, she is high class already, but it's just going to, it'll probably make things just a little bit easier through the races for her.
Okay, she's turned the form round at Clonmel with Dolcita. Paul Townend beat Ballyshannon Rose and Scarlet and Dove on that occasion, and Ellie May was further back as well with a pouncing ride late on. Let's have a look at the betting for the Mrs Paddy Power next. Now, Scarlet and Dove is 7-1. Ellie May, the title holder, 10-1. Zambella's there at 12s, as I mentioned. These are, of course, Paddy Power prices, and Dolcita is 16s. But the favourite is Allegory de Vassy, who, like Colreevy, who won this race 2 years ago, is a novice. What did you make of her debut at Limerick?
She was very good. She looked very fresh and very well. On her first run over fences. She travelled around there well. I know Limerick that week was very heavy ground, and she seemed to handle that very well. But I was really impressed the way she just went through a race, the whole way through the race. Sean rode her that day. She looked very comfortable, jumped great, never missed a beat the whole way until she got to the second last, where she slightly guessed at the second last. But I think Sean had realised the race was won, and he was just trying to get her to go in and pop, because she'd 3 out and 4 out and 5 out. She'd gone down and she'd winged them, and I'd say he was just trying to educate her, teach her, because you can run down into that fence, and horses can get a bit of momentum going down that, and it can cause, the second last at Limerick can cause problems. I presume he just wanted her to go in and pop, and she's just slightly come out of his hands and reached out a little bit.
I know Colrevie managed to win at the Cheltenham Festival in this race as a novice, but the race has kind of grown and matured in stature since then. It's a bigger ask, I think, against those high-achieving mares this time around.
I think this year is going to be a very, very good race. I think there's a lot of mares that have improved from last year as well, and I think it's a tough ask, but it's William Mullins again. You can never underestimate him, can he? But visually, she looked very, very impressive, I must admit, down in Limerick there, yeah.
And she's built like a chaser. I can say that because Ruby's not here. She's built like a chaser. She is. Right, let's have a look at the Savills New Year's Day chase, shall we? Go to Tremor and see the return of Minella Indo, who's up against Statler, who's sitting there in the red cap in third.
Yeah, I watched this race. I mean, it's a fantastic race for Tremor, really. But as you look at it, it's a 2 mile 6 around a sharp, tight track.
Round and round.
You know, for Tremor, and I mean, I think that the whole thing about this is, I'm not really sure you can gauge a Gold Cup winner out, because they're totally different tracks. One's right-handed, one's left-handed, one's over 2.6, and the other's obviously extended.
It worked for Alboon Photo.
Yeah, I know, but it's just sort of like, it's a sharp track, and you know, I think it's more the well-being of the horses for this race, more so than anything else.
That's where we lost Albera 3 out. Statler, who was a bit airy early on, is now produced a challenge, but Minella Indo has got first run on him here.
It's a short track, and like you say, Minella kicked because obviously they know he stays very, very well. I know the Slater, but Minella has that, maybe that slight bit of, whereas the Slater ran over 4 miles, isn't he? And you know, there's probably a little bit more toe with Minella Indo than the other horse. But like you say, I think it was a really good race. It was a cracking race, and like you say, I think the well-being of both horses, you know, the way they've really quickened and they pulled clear of a really decent 2.5 miler.
And we know, of course, Minella Indo's Cheltenham Festival record, won the Albert Bartlett, second in the Brown Advisory, the former RSA, behind Champ when he got involved in a duel with Allaho. He's won the Gold Cup. He was second last year. Let's have a look at the betting and where he features. He's still quite a big price, and I know that some people that I've been conversing with on Twitter quite fancy him, certainly each way at a 20-1 price. It is a very, very competitive field with lots of up-and-coming horses. Galopin de Chambre, L'Empresse, Noble Yates, Protectorat, Brave Man's Game, Conflated. They're all coming, and Hewick even, all coming in here with really good form.
I actually really like the picture for the Gold Cup this year, and I think that you could have, generally, you can actually say you could have 8 or 9 of them there. You know, if they all stand their ground and if they all come through, it could be a really, really good Gold Cup this year. It could be really exciting, because I love the novices. I mean, I was reading someone they were crabbing some of the novice form from last year that's not as strong. But like what they've done this year, you know, against the older Big Agony, they've held their own, haven't they?
Definitely.
And I actually think it could be a really good Gold Cup if they all turn up.
I think so too. I think that it's going to be a real high standard race. Let's hear from Henry de Bromhead, because of course our Plutar, who is the Bouda's Gold Cup title holder, was unfortunately withdrawn from the Savills Chase at Leopardstown on vet's advice. He banged a joint. Henry, speaking to Gary O'Brien at Tremor on New Year's Day, gave this update.
This swelling around his joint, it just gave us a fright on the day. It was actually slightly worse the next day, but it's definitely improving now. His x-rays and everything were clean. Everything seems good. We've got a couple of more tests to run, but the filling was his leg felt much better today, so hopefully we're over the worst of it.
How important do you think it would be to get a run into him before he goes back to Cheltenham in an ideal world?
Yeah, that's a good question. I don't know. Like, I mean, we were able to get him spot on for Haydock last year, you know, so we'll see. I don't know if I want to empty him out on real soft ground there. And probably his only option is the Irish Gold Cup. But yeah, sometimes you get pushed into things and it works out favourably for you. So I don't know. We'll discuss it with we'll get him right, make sure we're 100% right with him, and then we'd see what everyone thinks. You know, there's enough people there and we can work it out between us and see.
Thanks to Henry for that update, and also congratulations to the entire team from that excellent win from Minella Indo. He mentioned the word filling there. What does he mean? Yeah,
it's just on your joint. Like, just say if you just give yourself, just say if you go and you knock your wrist or your elbow, it's quite sore, it's quite painful, and then you just get that little bit of a swelling that's around it basically, and it's, with a horse like that, you're not going to take any chances, are you? But that's basically, he's obviously, he's banged himself or something over the night, during the night or something, or even an exercise, the previous morning or something. So that's all it is, just a little bit of swelling. Ice cold baths, and the ice machines that they have now are brilliant. So I'm sure he'll be back to A1 no problem.
Okay, next time I dislocate my knee for the 12th time, I've
used them game redders quite a lot on my body. They're good.
I'll bear that in mind. Right, just to bring you up to date in terms of entries for Cheltenham, they start coming every week now, and we picked out some interesting ones. We start with the Boodles Cheltenham Gold Cup. There are 27 entries overall. Sounds Russian has been entered by Ruth Jefferson, second in the Rowland Berwick at Wetherby over Christmas. Hewick as well, who I mentioned earlier, Shark Hamlin, said, "Am I mad to think the horse has got a massive chance?" Definitely not, Shark. Great winner of the Bet365 Galway Plate and American Grand National, and probably was about to win a career best when seating at the last in the Kerry National. And then Capodanno, he is also there, which is a relief because we haven't seen him since Punchestown. He was fourth in the Brown Advisory last year. So those are three interesting entries from the Gold Cup. Let's have a look at the Ryanair. They've got 27 entries as well. Last year's runner-up Janadil is also there. I know that one of the roadies was asking Ruby about Janadil and whether he's okay. Well, at least he's got this entry. He didn't complete his subsequent 2 starts after falling into second behind Allaho last time, but he is unraced this season. And then Angel's Breath on the right there, unraced since winning the Noel at Ascot for Nicky Henderson as a novice in December 2019, now with Sam Thomas, still owned by Di Walters and friends. That horse is also entered in the Gold Cup. And then finally, we've got the Betway Queen Mother Champion Chase, for which there are 14 entries. Editor de Gite, after his Desert Orchid romp, he's in the race. And Amarillo Sky in the black and the yellow there. He's won both of his starts in handicap company this season. The latest win at Newbury for a mark of 144. He was 5th in the Grand Annual last year. He is entered in the Champion Chase. Time for this week's Road to Cheltenham poll. We asked you, where would you run Epiton next and why? Would it be A, the Champion Hurdle, Daryl, B, the Mares Hurdle, C, the Aintree Hurdle, or D, somewhere else? Let's have a look at what they all said. Mares Hurdle got 58.8%. I think you can probably add that up to a 1% overround there, but let's ignore that. Overwhelmingly, everybody thought the Mares Hurdle. What did you think?
If she was mine, I would go for the Aintree Hurdle as her Gold Cup. I'd love to see her go to Dublin to the racing festival and take on Honeysuckle, who obviously got beaten last time. Obviously you're going to have State Man in there as well. But there's really good prize money in offer over in Ireland. And then if you travel over there, see how she fares against the Irish horses, and then, like you say, give her a little bit of a break, and then have her finely tuned for Aintree, because I think Aintree, the Grade 1 at Aintree, I think it's a wide open race. If the horses that are coming from Cheltenham to there, they're a little bit tired, they're not performing yet, and if she's 100% on her aim game, she could be very, very difficult to beat at Aintree. So I think I'd do that. Okay,
well, she put up a career best, of course, winning the Aintree Hurdle last season. You are agreeing with Ronan Lee. He says, Dublin Racing Festival, that's where I'd run her. See where the Irish hurdlers are compared to Constitution Hill, similar to what Aidan O'Brien would do on the flat. John Mead says, Stayers Hurdle. He thinks the breeding and style of racing suggests she would get the trip. I couldn't see that breeding-wise. I couldn't find her half-siblings were at their best up to 2.6, but, maybe. Scott Ruddenham, Champion Hurdle, still has place claims and is running well as well as last season. Keep Marie's Rock to win the Mares Hurdle, and Nixon prize money in the Champion Hurdle. Different owners, of course. And then finally, Ian says, Aintree Hurdle, the main target, as you think, Daryl, but take the Champion in on the way. She's won it before and only beaten by Constitution Hill and Honeysuckle over 2 miles so far. They'd be gutted if the big two were taken out at the first by Not So Sleepy, Not Impossible, and she was watching from the stables. Right, OK, that is the thoughts from the social polls. Thank you very much, and that leads us nicely into our next item. While we're talking mares, let's talk about Marie's Rock, the winner of the David Nicholson Close Brother sponsored Mares Hurdle at the festival last season. She made her belated return on New Year's Day, Daryl. That was in the Rel Keel. She beat the geldings. Typically she was a little bit keen during the course of the race. It was a slowly run affair, but in the end she was a dominant winner.
Yeah, she was very good this day. I thought Nico done really well because she can be a little bit headstrong, and the way she carries herself, that's why she's got the noseband on her, just to try and lower her head, and she still had her head up at times, but I thought Nico got her into a lovely rhythm this day, and I thought she jumped very quick, very good, neat, accurate, and she's a really, really good mare when on her A day.
She really is. It was Dashel Drasher in the yellow cap up front, brewing up a storm in the pink. Flirted with the lead for a while. That's Nappers Hill on the outside in the blue and white. And a little bit out of the ground is I Like to Move It, ridden differently from the Greatwood. He is in 6th place there. First Street stays on as well for 3rd. But this is where Marie's Rock launches at Dashel Drasher.
Yeah, I mean, I remember he beat me on Mr. Tommy Tucker at Ascot one day, and he's a big, honest, lovable horse. He's a keep galloper. He jumps great, and he was never ever going to lie down. So she had to be at her best to go by him this day, and fair play to her. She did, and like I say, it was a fantastic run from the runner-up.
It was, and Jeremy Slott, the trainer of the runner-up, is thinking Stayers Hurdle for Dashel Drasher. First Street's run well in 3rd. Probably a little bit further back the way that the race developed, but still run well. Yeah,
he's stuck out, and I thought he was going to get 2nd close to the line, but he's ran well. He stayed on nicely. I mean, there will be more pots to win with him, but I think the winner and the 2nd deserve an awful lot of credit for that race there today. The rest of them sort of fell away, bars James kind of came through a beaten pack to get 3rd. The first 2, they were up there all the way, and at Cheltenham that day, that the ground wasn't the nicest.
Nico was saying afterwards he was surprised Marie's Rock handled it so well.
Yeah, because I spoke to Nico when he was walking the track. I speak to Nico quite a lot, and I mean, he's an artist mind. He every track he goes there, walks the ground, see where the best ground is, and he's a for Nicky to have him on his team is fantastic, and he's a real perfectionist. And I remember speaking to that morning, and he was saying about the ground, it was going to be very hard, gluey. It was going to be so. For her to win the way she did, and even Dashel Drasher to stick on, making the run and going a real good honest gallop, and he sorted a few of them out. Like, I thought Nappers Hill would have been a threat in that race, because when he beat Scoriel over 2 miles at Wincanton that day, I thought he'd be a live player in this, but he kind of fell away.
He found very little up the hill.
No, he found very little, so he was probably disappointing. I think some of the horses probably underperformed in the race, whether it was the ground or whatever it was, but the 1st and 2nd, they were very good.
Yes, stamina possibly stretched, well, sort of comparatively to Dashel Drasher maybe on First Street, and I Like to Move It maybe didn't like the more patient tactics. He controlled the Greatwood, didn't he? Let's go back to the mares and talk about what happened on the last day of Leopardstown's festival over Christmas. She Wears It Well beat Queensbrook. Queensbrook was very well fancied on this day. She's in front there with the red cap. There is She Wears It Well, who was a little bit hesitant over her hurdle. She had a real crashing fall in this race 12 months earlier, and William Ellis was saying afterwards he still thinks that she remembers that.
Yeah, she was at a few of her hurdles, she was just a little bit slow and took a bit of time to warm up to him, but Paul Townsend's a fantastic jockey. He rides these horses with so much confidence and so much patience, knowing that they will come to him in the end. And I thought the way he rode her the whole way around, he sort of schooled her around, got her into a nice rhythm, and built her confidence. The more the race went along, the better she got. And like you say, she's got the ability. She's a very, very high class mare, and like you say, she came through and won it really nicely in the end.
Okay, well, let's take a look at the impact of those races on the Close Brothers mares hurdle. I still reckon if She Wears It Well is going to really feature in this, she's going to need something to sharpen up her jumping. Maybe it'll just come with confidence. Marie's Rock, the title holder, is the 3-1 favourite. Honeysuckle 4-1. Brandy Love 9-2. Epitante 9-2. What would you do with Honeysuckle, Daryl?
Well, there is talk that she might go for this race. I mean,
depends on the Irish Champion hurdle.
Yeah, I think so. I think the Dublin race that will be key to where she will line up. I mean, Henry said in the past, his object is to win races, and if he doesn't think she's good enough to win a champion hurdle, why wouldn't you not have a go at this race? It's a great race. Marie's Rock is this kind of standout, isn't she? But It'd be a fantastic race to watch, wouldn't it?
It would be. I think it's going to be a really deep mare's hurdle, but the dual champion hurdle winner, if she runs at Cheltenham at all, should run in the champion hurdle. Anyway, let's have a look at Saturday's big race.
I would not take a Grade 1 any day.
I know.
I'd just go for the win.
You jockeys are all the same. All the same. It's the purists over here. Let's have a look at the Unibet listed mare's hurdle at Sandown. We can have a look at the betting. It's quite a select field, in which we've got Love Envoi at 4-9 favourite, Martello Skies 9-4, Fortinet, an interesting runner who debuted at Aintree and didn't get very far as a 4-year-old for Venetia Williams. That's next in at 12-1. Any thoughts here? Love Envoi started the season really well with a win at Sandown, ever slightly shorter.
Yeah, I mean, she's a really good mare. Harry Fry's obviously always thought an awful lot of her, and she was very good down at Linkfield in the Winter Millions. Cheltenham again last year, she was very, very good. She's a very, very good mare, isn't she? She loves soft ground, and it's going to be soft ground at Sandown on Saturday. So that's all of that is in her favour. She should, in theory, take a lot of beating. But Martello Sky is interesting, mind. I'll never forget the day I rode at Market Raisin, and she came by me and she just whooshed by me. Yeah. I was thinking I didn't know. You know what I mean? She literally came up beside me and she was gone. Within 5 strides, she was gone. She's a good mare as well, and the track at Sandown will suit her down to a T. So I'm looking forward to that race. I think it could be really interesting. I'm not sure Love Envoi, if she was a short price, I think it's going to be a lot closer than what people might think it's going to be.
I agree with you. I think it's going to be very interesting between those two. Love Envoi, of course, the winner of the Dawn at the festival last year before beaten by Brandy Love at Punchestown. Right, that's the mares. We're going to move on to the novice hurdlers next. So we'll start in the novice hurdle section by having a look at the Challow, Daryl, in which Hermes was a very impressive winner, beating the mare You Wear It Well. Yeah,
this is really eye-catching, actually. Harry obviously jumped out down the inner, and he was quite keen to get on with it at the start, and I thought Harry was very clever. If you watch him when he jumps every hurdle, he sort of comes in slightly off the hurdle course and then back out and jumps it again, and it's more noticeable up the home straight.
It's interesting there, isn't it? There's a number of horses that keep towards the inside. This is the head-on in the straight. The first, second and third have stuck to the inside there, and the first and second have stuck to the inside all the way around. Yeah,
it's obviously some jockeys were going for a different ground, isn't it? But like you say, Harry's and Gavin and Sam all stuck to the inside, and they all tried to tread the path of just walking the course and trying to be clever. You just go on the inside, trying to get as fresh a ground as you can.
And Harry's just come over to the standside rail at the end just to give him some help, some guidance to the line after quite an attritional race. I mean, look how few finished.
Yeah, it was a war of attrition, wasn't it? They went a real solid gallop the whole way, and I think Harry took it up halfway down the back straight and made sure it was a bit of a test.
That was on Vicky Vale. He went, and he went hard round the home turn. He really laid it down to them.
I presume, obviously, he was thinking it was more of, he wanted a real test, but it was hard work at Newbury. Newbury doesn't usually get as heavy as that now, so it was a war of attrition, and them horses, they'll know they've had a good race, but I thought the second ran very well. I thought the second actually was given a very, very clever ride by Gavin Sheehan. Yeah, I thought he was very clever on that, yeah.
A couple of Irish raiders in that, Joya Machine and Kansas City Star, who did keep towards the inside, certainly in the back straight, but in the end they were ultimately quite well beaten. Hermes Allen, that makes 3 wins in a row for Harry Cobden and Paul Nicholls in the Challow. Brave Man's Game, Stage Star, and now Hermes Allen, and everyone will go on about the record of the Challow at the Cheltenham Festival, won't they?
Yes, they always do, don't they?
They do. Take one side, one, press play. But he's adaptable, and he looks like a Ballymore type, doesn't he, David?
Well, to be honest with you, visually, I just love what he's doing. I thought he was very good. I just loved the way he went down when Harry had a nice hold of his head, and he just went down and he seemed to measure every single hurdle he got to. His ears were pricked, he looked for the next hurdle, and he went in and he jumped it really smoothly. He's going to be a fantastic chaser, man. I think this is, whatever he does over hurdles, he's going to make a fantastic chaser. He just, visually to the eye, I just love the way he went down and attacked every hurdle.
OK, let's move to Cheltenham on New Year's Day and have a look at a couple of novice hurdlers that I liked. We've All Been Caught won the race for Nigel Twiston Davis, but the 66-1 shot Rock My Way, making his debut under rules. He's the one in the black there in second, the winner up front in the green and yellow. They've both emerged with credit here, I think.
Yeah, I thought Sam's horse was very, typical, Nigel horses. That Nigel's horses are great to ride because you can just pop out and go a nice even gallop, and they always stay very, very well. And again, Sam, wanted to make a really good test this day, and like you say, he jumped great, and he even got down to the hurdles. Sam's horses even looked slightly green. Some of them he jumped out to the right, just having a look around him. So I think there's a lot more improvement to come from Sam Twiston-Davis's horse. Potentially with a lead or something the next day, where he had to do a lot of the donkey work himself here this day. Probably wouldn't have suited the horse that way. So I think there's a lot more to come from him. And then obviously Tom Scudamore's horse, again, looks like a real chaser in the making, doesn't he? And I thought he stuck to his guns. He had a lovely slipstream off Sam the whole way, and like you say, he was thereabouts all the way, and good race. It
was a really good race, the two of them pulling really clear. Both horses to remember, I think, and we've all been caught, of course, also advertising the form of Hermes because he finished third to him on his debut over hurdles in a Grade 2 over 2 mile 5 previously. Let's go back to the second day of Limerick's Christmas meeting, and there's, let me clear about it, in the lead under Luke Dempsey, and in second in the Jigginstown colours, that's the winner, Favori de Chamdou. It's over 2 mile 7, it's a Grade 2. What did you make of this, Daryl?
I thought it was a really good race as well, and what stuck out to me is I love the way the winner, and this is just a mistake, just meets it wrong, leaves the hind legs through it and just kind of drags her back end through it.
That's Jungle Pros.
Yeah. But I love the way the winner has gone away, and the way he looks like a nice big chasing type of horse, and I thought he jumped very well. I thought actually over the first 3 or 4 he was just a little bit big, and then he got into a nice slick rhythm, and then go down to the last he idled a little bit in front. He was maybe getting potentially a little bit tired and stuff like that. He was big and bold over the last idling, and then he put his head down and he ran well to the line.
He did. Let's move next to Tremor, shall we, on New Year's Day, and have a look at Quai de Paris, winning for Willie Mullins and Rich and Susanna Ritchie. There he is, keeping towards the outside. What did you make of this performance? In the end, it was quite hard work.
Got hard work from him in the end, but again, that's the advantage of walking the tracks and stuff like that. Like, you see how wide Paul and Rachel have gone the whole way. Obviously used ground down the inside, was obviously very, very gluey that day, and he went wide, kept it simple, popped out down the middle all the way and just got wider as the race developed. And he looked like as if he was going to put the race to safekeeping, a little bit under the last, a little bit slower. The second, third had a little bit more momentum, but to be fair, once Paul scrubbed hold of him, he's picked up well, and he's ran well to the line, so he has.
Yes, he has. It'll be interesting to see how he builds on that particular performance. Let's have a look at the Ballymore betting, followed by the Albert Bartlett betting, because we're likely to be seeing these horses in that. Gaelic Warrior will come up, and Imperio Pass will come up later on in the show, as will Grange Clare West. Hermes Allen currently the favourite at 11-4 with Paddy Power, and for the Albert Bartlett, Grange Clare West is there at 5-1, along with my fancy for the race, Hidden Valley Lake at 11-2. Let's have a look now at Newbury's introductory hurdle on New Year's Eve. It was won by a 4-year-old against older horses. This was Jupiter du Gite, and it also featured, Daryl, in the yellow and black there, Jet Powered, who had quite the reputation coming into this. The winner, however, is already in front.
Yeah, I mean, obviously Jet Power didn't turn up this day. I mean, I've done a bit of work with Nico, with Jet Power and stuff like that, and he's a really big, fine horse, Jet Power. He obviously hasn't turned up on the day, but I mean, take nothing away from the winner. I heard Gary said it was a bit of a free course, and it goes out on its own in a hood. Mm-hmm. They didn't expect this from it.
Again, he kept to the inner throughout.
Yeah, inside the whole way, but then again, I think because Niall rode him this day, keen front runner, just let him go, and obviously trying to go the shortest way around. But what actually I liked about him is I thought he was going to get sort of collared, or they were going to come around him, the better horses were going to come around him, and then Niall just kind of half sat for 50 yards again, just sort of filled him up again, and actually went again and asked him for more, and actually, to be fair, he got more and more and more, and it was a really, really good performance in the end. I know the second horse was obviously ridden out the back, and that kind of came through, passed through a lot of beaten horses.
Yep.
Klitschko passed a lot of beaten horses. I thought the winner was good because he was keen enough throughout the race. I thought Niall gave him a very clever ride as well. He filled him up whenever he could, going by the winning post, even down the back straight. He always sat trying to fill him up, just trying to get him to relax, get him to do the job properly. And even turning in when they were coming, he was still always pulling, just taking him back, filling him up again. And like I say, when he asked for more, the horse duly obliged. And I think Gary was taken by the performance. I think a lot of us were, actually, to be fair, because I know Jamie rated his horse in the race as well quite a lot.
OK, let's have a look at the Supreme Novices Hurdle betting. Jet Powered, I think, was second favourite going into this. He's been knocked out after that. Facile Vega, already odds on at 8 to 11. Marine Nationale, who goes straight there, is 11 to 2. 10 to 1 for Rare Edition, that good winner at Kempton on Boxing Day. And Ampere Pass again, 12 to 1, and upwards the rest. We'll have a chat about that horse in a moment. But first, we're going to have a look at Harmonia Maker, bouncing back at Fairyhouse, beating Pink in the Park here. Let's have a look at what she managed. She went out straight in front in this small field, but she did tend to adjust to her left quite a bit.
Yeah, if you look at the races, so she's leading with her, she likes to lead with her near 4 rather than her off 4, so it's just a bit like a footballer, a left-handed or right foot, and she just seems to want to lead with her near 4, so I think going left-handed there will be a lot more improvement.
That was the mistake from Pink in the Park.
And even going down to the last, still was leading with his near 4. Obviously, changed over, and I thought it was a good performance. Slick when Jack wanted it to be slick, and even down to the last, I thought it was very, very slick, and went away from a nice horse of William Mullins in the end.
Absolutely, that's Pink in the Park in second. Popover was the one that made the bad blunder at the last. Let's have a look at the impact on the Dawn Run Mares Novices Hurdle betting, shall we? Lucia, who doesn't run in the Tolworth, she's got a little bit of a bit of snotty nose, essentially. It's nothing serious, so she's not running at Sandown on Saturday. Ashrow Diamond, who ran really well at the Dublin Racing Festival, she's next in at 5 to 1, and Magical Zoe is still quite big, I think, at 10 to 1, and Harmonia Maker is at 14. So let's have a look at a couple of the key novice hurdle races from the weekend, starting with the Tolworth. And this is the betting. Tarmuras is the favourite with Paddy Power at 15 to 8, ahead of previous Sandown winner Authorised Speed at 2 to 1. Arctic Brazil, who represents Henry de Bromhead, is 11 to 4, and it's a big gap to the rest of them. That looks like a good race to me.
Do you know what? For the first time in quite a few years, I can actually honestly say the entries were good for the Tolworth. Usually you get one good horse and then the rest are the rest are kind of filling the place gaps. But the entries came out for this race and it looked a really good Tolworth hurdle, and I'm happy. It's great to see some of the horses are taking each other on, and I think Paul Nicholls' horse is a really good race. He won the race. I was third on Sergeant Wilson at Chepstow, and I thought I was thereabouts beside him 2 out, and he quickened really nicely, really smartly, like a real good horse that day at Chepstow, and then flanked that at Haydock when sort of a little bit novice. He had a few of his jumps, but then actually when Harry got stuck into him and asked him to go and put his race to bed, I thought he'd done it very well. I think this horse is an improving horse with every run. I think he's going to get better and better, and I think the longer he keeps going, he's going to get better and better. So there's plenty of potential for this horse.
Yeah, I agree.
I think he's a very raw talent.
Yeah, Tamuris, who went on to win at Haydock, and as Daryl's saying, improved there as well. Let's have a look at the Lawlers of Naas, which is a Grade 1 over 2.5 miles on Sunday. This is how they bet. Willie Mullins thinks he's going to run at least 2, and probably those 2 at the top of the market, Grangeclare West and Gaelic Warrior. The latter, of course, famously runner-up in the Fred Winter to Brazil last season at the Cheltenham Festival. He's been given a mark of 134, though. Can Willie Mullins really look at a mark of 134 and still run Gaelic Warrior in a Grade 1 here? Yeah,
it's going to be. I mean, you'd like to think off that sort of mark. There's a few other pots that might go lurking in the Willie Mullins camp, but
I can just imagine what Willie Mullins is doing at home with 134.
So I think 134 could be quite sweet for some of them big handicaps. I mean, even the Dublin Racing Festival, there's so many good handicaps there, isn't there? But I mean, we'll see. But I mean, Grangeclare West. 3 from 3. He won a point to point, won a bumper, and won a hurdle. He's a 7-year-old. But yeah, I mean, he looks good, doesn't he?
He does indeed. But there was
I actually remember riding out when I was in Willie's there not so long ago. He was riding out, and I remember looking at him and thought, well, that's a tidy beast. And here he is popping up in a Grade 1 at Naas.
There are some other interesting horses, though. I mean, Irish Point and Champ Keeley ran really well in the Royal Bond. Bit too much use, certainly, of Champ Keeley. He made of himself, pulling himself into the race, but also maybe from Irish Point as well. He attacked slightly too soon. A good performance from him. Yeah,
and there's another one in there, Joseph O'Brien's horse as well, Dawn Rising, 2 from 3 over hurdles, won a grade 3 at Navan, beating a really nice horse called American Mike of Gordon Elliott's.
They went too hard that day, didn't they? American Mike and Affordel Fury,
yeah,
who's
potentially,
also in this race.
But I think this horse is still, there's a lot more to come from this, and Joseph's having a magnificent run with his jumpers. I mean, he had a brilliant Christmas festival, didn't he? And the jumpers that he has, he rates them, and I think Dawn Rising, I think he could be a really nice horse, and like you say, I like the way he put his head down and he galloped from the last to the line the last day. So I wouldn't rule out him.
Okay, should be an excellent Lawless of Naas. That's the end of the novice hurdling section.
The From the Horse's Mouth podcast every Friday. Fran Berry looking at Dundalk. We're on the road to Cheltenham now, though, Fran. So let's tell the road to Cheltenham viewers and listeners why they should be listening to us.
Yeah, look, fantastic show on a Thursday night, but the main action all weekend is Dundalk on a Friday night. Listen to our podcast, PK. We'll find winners in Dundalk. If it all goes pear-shaped, it's also known as the Road to Ruin. And Rory and Roy Delargy and Ruby also do a bit of tipping on the weekend as well. Quite a good show, not as good as the Dundalk effort, though.
There is some jumps racing in the weekends, but Friday Dundalk is key. Fran Berry, listen out for us. We'll pass back to Lydia and Ruby, who know a few things about racing.
So we thought we'd take advantage of having Daryl in the studio to get you to ask him some questions. Take it away, Emma Nagle.
Hi guys, my question for Daryl is if he has done much work with Impere Pass at Willys, and how highly does he think he can rank among the top novices in either the Supreme or Ballymore this year?
Hi Emma, yeah, I've done quite a lot of work with Impere. He's a fine, big, strong animal. I think he's going to get better again with a summer under his back. I really liked him. He's got a really big stride, and look, I think he won over 2-3 on his first run for us. I finished third behind him and one of Simon's other horses. I think the options are open, really. I think he could come back to 2, or he could step up to 2.5. But I think he might go for the Moscow Flyer hurdle over 2. Is that next? And then
it is 2, yeah.
Yeah, I think he might drop him back to 2 for his next run for the Moscow, and then see how he gets on in that. And then I suppose we'll have a much clearer idea then where we want to go with him for the rest of the year.
Okay, thanks for your question, Emma. Josh Toole has got a question as well. He's tweeted it to you. He's thinking about Nusret, on whom you were third behind Lossiemouth in the juvenile at Leopardstown over Christmas. He's wondering whether Nusret is ideal for the Boodles' Fred Winter. First of all, talk us through what happened at Leopardstown and then your view on the question.
So Nusret obviously won really comfortably at Punchestown for me on his first run, set really nicely and jumped really nicely that day. But here we didn't go that quick actually in this race early doors, and a horse behind me kind of slightly lit up my horse. He just had made a bit of a noise upside my horse and sort of slightly lit up my horse. So I got a little bit keen, sort of from about 3 furlongs gone to about the 7 or 8 furlongs, which didn't help, and I was sort of always on the wrong leg. I was like explaining earlier on, I was leading with the off 4 instead of the near 4, and that's not ideal going around Leopardstown. So I was always on the wrong sort of leg, and I was sort of leaning out to the right.
That's bad news for the Boodles as well, isn't it? Surely.
Yeah, exactly. And I think we're learning an awful lot about these horses, and I think his best flat runs have been on the Curragh and places like that, right-handed. So we're going to stick him to right-handed tracks. So he's going to have a bit of a winter's break because he had a busy summer's campaign as well on the flat. So we're going to give him a bit of a break now and bring him back. And I think the Punchestown Grade 1 that I won a few years ago with Fusler Raffles, I think that'll be his Gold Cup for the year. We won't go to Cheltenham. I'd imagine we'll miss Cheltenham and just aim him at Punchestown, and maybe there's a race in February, I think, or maybe a little bit afterwards around Fairyhouse that could be his prep race.
Okay, really good information. Thank you very much for excellent questions. I think we've saved the best for this show to last. This is the Dipper Novices Chase Grade 2 at Cheltenham on New Year's Day, in which the Real Whacker beat Montmirail. I'm a big Montmirail fan. I still think he's got a future, but the Real Whacker making all here, jumping beautifully. I was just so taken by this performance. How about you?
This is unbelievable. This is, from a jockey's point of view, this is what you want. See, the horse's ears are pricked. If you had a GoPro on Sam's helmet, and for the viewers to see this, it's awesome footage. You know, you got a horse there, he's got him in a lovely rhythm, but every single fence, look at the ears are pricked, and he comes to see the next fence, he pricks his ears and he measures him. He's given Sam an absolute dream ride around here, and I thought it was a really good performance. It just very slick even over 2 out and going down to the last. Sam's just keeping him up to his work. Watch his ears go again in a minute. Starts flicking his ears.
And it's over 2.5 miles as well, and you know he's definitely going to stay. He had them on the stretch, didn't he, 4 out? That's when Montmirail made a mistake. Beauport in the blue made several mistakes. It did look as though Montmirail just kind of maybe a little bit weak at the moment, and Paul Nicholls has been talking about him being a bit like Clandezobo and needing time to mature. But the winner for Pat Neville is ready now, isn't he? And he's entered him in the Gold Cup. Yeah,
exactly. I mean, you know, it was a great ride. It was very, very well placed for the day, because you know Gavin's ridden him in previously, and I've spoken to Gavin since, and Gavin said he loves that sort of ground. So it was a really cute bit of placing by the trainer. But he's just a horse that just seems to love galloping and jumping, really.
I like him for the Brown Advisory. I am going to put him up in my column at 12-1. So I hereby say that that is my ante-post bet for the Brown Advisory at a best price 12-1. That is the Real Whacker. I know you could have got much bigger than that when we all thought he might be going to the National Hunt Chase, but nonetheless, I think 12-1. It'd be much shorter where he trained at a more, they say, more fashionable yard, don't they? But Pat Neville's doing really well with the horse. Stage Star has got his act back together. In a match, he beat Mortlack at Plumpton. He was not really himself, going to his left at Newbury last time.
No, he didn't. There was no real opposition. It was really just a schooling exercise, wasn't it, to get him out to jump and try to get his confidence and you know, and start meeting fences on a nice even stride, and you know, it was a good confidence booster for the horse. I mean, he even came out of Harry's hands at the second last. So you know, the horse, I think, from going to Plumpton, it was a really good exercise for the horse. I think he needed it. And he is a good jumper. He is, you know what I mean. But at times he just seems to have lost a little bit of confidence with his jumping. But I thought it was a really good exercise from the other day.
Yeah, hopefully he will build confidence from that. Let's look ahead to Sunday at Naas and the Rathmore Stud Irish EBF Novice Chase. Appreciate It, hopefully, will be having his second start, and his form really dwarfs the potential opposition here. What did you make of his debut?
I was very impressed. He made all at Punchestown. I thought he looked a typical one of Willie's, just a little bit fresh and well, but I thought he was very good to jump. He measured his fences really, really well. He won it very, very comfortably, as you would expect he would. You know, his form is right up there. Look what Blue Lord has done. He thrashed Blue Lord when Blue Lord fell in the Supreme Novice. Hugely exciting horse with a big horse to mind, and you just think Chason's written all over him. He takes fences very, very comfortably, and I think he's got more respect for his fences than he does his hurdles. So
yes,
I think the world is his oyster, really.
Yes, I was of all of the big guns that Willie Mullins has run out as novice chasers so far, I was most impressed with Appreciate It. But what do you make of El Fabiolo for the double green of Simon and Isaac?
I thought he was good. I thought he was a bit, like you say, a little bit keen at times and just sort of not really concentrating at times. I think he was just a little bit too rushy, like even down to to the second last. I think it was a great ride by Paul, because he's tried to educate him, tried to school him, a bit like what we talked about earlier on in the show. These horses, it's very, very important in their first run over hurdles and fences to get the schooling, to get the experience, to get the practice, and he's obviously going to have to sharpen up a lot on this, but I think he will do. I think he's a horse it is always very, very fresh on his first run, even last year, but there's loads more to come from this horse, and when the penny drops and he gets it all together, he's a very, very good horse.
David Burns has a question for Daryl about El Fabiolo, and here it is. How confident would he be about El Fabiolo taking on John Bon in the Arkle? I believe that without the interference at 3 out in the top novices hurdle at Aintree last season, that he, remember, David, in this parish, he, not it, would have beaten John Bon.
I'd take any horse on with El Fabiolo. I absolutely love him. He's a big, powerful, strong, he's a beautiful specimen of a horse. I'd take on any horse with him.
Really?
Yeah.
Okay. Positive words. Right, we've come to the end of Road to Cheltenham. Where are you, Daryl, this weekend?
I'm going to Newcastle on Saturday, and down to Chepstow Sunday, and then back up to Ayr on Monday, I think. So busy driving up and down the country. What
would you pick out for us? What are you sure will be running?
We've got some, to be fair, actually, we've got the horse that finished third to Impair the last day. He's back out again, so at Newcastle on Saturday. So very much looking forward to him. We've got really nice bumper horses as well that's going as well. So I've got 3 really nice rides up there for Stuart Crawford and Simon and Isaac. So looking forward to it.
And how was this for you?
I've really enjoyed it, actually. Yeah, it's been really good fun.
Good.
I'm not sure. I don't think Ruby would be worried too much about his job, but I really enjoyed it. I really enjoyed it.
I'm glad to hear you enjoyed it. That's really good to hear. We'd love to have you back another time as well, Daryl, and best of luck for the rest of the season as well, and particularly this forthcoming weekend. If you need more, of course, there is the column. Go to racingtv.com/Road to Cheltenham. There's already been 3 columns for the Christmas period, and there'll be a further one coming up at the weekend. And we will see you next Thursday at 9 o'clock. When Ruby will be back in the chair.
Win our weekly jackpot with Paddy's Pick 5. Pick 5 winners from our 5 races to win. Enter for free online. Paddy Power.
Watch live racing now on racingtv.com.